Hello, everyone. Let's give it another minute, I would say. Some people are still joining, so before we start, I have also 3 watches on my desk, and some of them are showing different times, so let's see. Okay, Johannes, shall we start?
Yes. So, hello and welcome everybody to our today's webinar, Effortless SAP Data Integration in Microsoft Fabric Open Mirroring and Lakehouse. Please give me some minutes for housekeeping. This webinar will last about 45 minutes. In the end, we will have reserved 15 minutes for your questions. Please hand in your questions via the Q&A section in the Microsoft Teams. It's on the toolbar on the top. The webinar is being recorded. The recording and the slides will be shared afterwards. If we will have not time to answer all of your questions, we will of course catch up later with you after the webinar. My name is Johannes Schwele. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of DAB. And now I will just line out the agenda of today's webinar. First of all, I give you a short overview, an introduction about DAB Datenanalyse und Beratungs GmbH. Then we will see introduction into Microsoft Fabric. We will then talk about the challenges of extracting SAP data in general. And then, most important of all, we will see how we do the extraction and give a live demo. In the end, as mentioned, we will have the Q&A for you. So we, DAB Daten and Analyse Beratungs GmbH, are in the market since more than 20 years now, and with 60 employees, we serve the market with high-performance SAP data extraction and SAP analytic knowledge. With this stuff, we are proudly serving more than 250 customers in 20 countries, and with our cooperation with Microsoft, we bring that technology and know-how on Microsoft technology. Please find here some of the customers we are proudly serving. Some of them are, of course, in Germany, some of them internationally. Maybe all of them have one thing in common. They are SAP users. So let me introduce you to one of the speakers of today, Philip Kienke, our Global Partner Manager. Philip, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Johannes, for setting the stage. My name is Philip Kienke. I'm working as Global Partner Manager at DAB. That means that I do a lot with our partners all over the globe. And one of the partners you might have already noticed on the first slide is a small startup based in Redmond, US. It's called Microsoft. Some of you might have known already. And I've been working with Microsoft over the past year. And mid of last year, I met a person from Microsoft called Ulrich Christ, who is responsible for the integration of SAP data into their new Fabric environment. And yeah, we got in touch and we're talking about, okay, there might be an option to work together. And I'm pretty happy that he is with me today. So Ulrich, welcome also in our webinar. And yeah, please introduce yourself and give us a little insights about the Fabric Open Mirror.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for introducing me. As you already said, my name is Ulrich Christ. I'm the product manager in the Microsoft Fabric Data Integration team responsible for SAP topics. My background is actually much more on the SAP side than on the Microsoft side. Still, I used to work for SAP for 16, 17 years and joined Microsoft around 3 years ago. And since then, I've basically been dealing with data integration from SAP sources. And as Philip already said, last year we got in touch and we saw a nice opportunity given the Fabric strategy which we have, and I'll allude to that in a minute, which is, of course, about offering a software as a service solution, which gives you all the functionalities you need to build an analytics solution out of the box. But we also intend to kind of offer this as a platform on which partners can offer their own services and maybe offer their own solutions in addition to enrich that platform. And this is exactly the framework or the kind of the circumstances under which we met and where we saw an opportunity to collaborate. Now, let me briefly share my screen and do a very quick introduction to Microsoft Fabric for those of you who have not heard much about it. So what is Microsoft Fabric? As I said, it's from our perspective, it's our unified data platform for the era of AI. And as you see on the right-hand side, what we're basically doing is we are providing all the capabilities you need for analytics, starting with data integration, data engineering, data warehousing, data science, real-time intelligence, and of course, Power BI, which is our flagship, and not only our flagship, but honestly, it's kind of, yeah, I mean, it's the de facto standard for dashboarding, I would say, and BI. Providing all of this out of the box in one software as a service solution based on a unified storage, which is OneLake. You can think of Azure Data Lake Gen 2 as a service, so it's also provisioned as part of the overall solution. You get all of this out of the box, comprehensive capabilities. Of course, we infuse everything with AI. You will find a lot of Copilot experiences in Fabric for multiple scenarios, whether it's a Power BI analytic model, whether it's a pipeline in Data Factory. All of this is supported by AI copilots. And that's basically the idea. So now you can think of the term platform in this context as, well, it's a platform which we provide to customers to build their analytic solutions on top. But actually, the platform idea, as I just said, goes beyond that, right? It's really also a platform on which we want to enable partners to add to that platform. So one thing which is missing on that slide is actually the fact that you can also build your own workloads and add them to Fabric. So in addition to the six workloads, which you see on the right-hand side, partners can add their own ones and deploy them into Fabric and offer them and also promote and market them via the Fabric platform. And this idea is, as I said, what kind of got us in touch. Very quick overview of Data Factory in Fabric. It's basically the data ingestion and data management piece. So it's starting from connectivity on the left-hand side, over data movement, orchestration with pipelines, which you probably know from Azure Data Factory, which allow you to orchestrate data-related tasks, and potentially also not data-related tasks. It's just an orchestration engine which allows you to orchestrate tasks. Transformation capabilities, you might know Data Flows Gen 2. All of that on OneLake. Again, as I said, an AI infused, lots of copilots around all of this. Deployment and observability, we have monitoring, we have error handling capabilities. So all of that out of the box. But, and that's a very clear thing, we also know that whatever we offer in this context, it will never be complete. Customers will have, and that's of course kind of the danger of a software as a service offering. Customers will have requirements that go beyond what the platform can provide. And we can't serve all the use cases. We aspire to serve 80–90% of the use cases potentially, but there's still a lot of room for partners, and we will see that in the demo and in the presentation from Philip later on. One key aspect, this is a standard slide which I just picked because I actually want to move on to the topic of mirror databases in that context. Mirror databases are basically from our perspective, the next generation of change data capture experience, I would say. So when it comes to synchronizing a source database or a source system, in the context of SAP, we're rarely talking about databases, it's always systems, right? Synchronizing the data which you have in your source with a sync in Fabric, this is kind of how we envision this, right? We call this mirroring, as I said, it's called mirroring databases because, well, we're Microsoft, we're not SAP. The terminology is in many cases more standard, but you can think of of course, you can come up with the idea of also mirroring tables or other sources from an SAP system into Fabric. And that's exactly what we will be talking about. So mirror databases is basically the topic, or one of the main topics of this presentation from our perspective. This is one of the key aspects, because change data capture is just, I mean, it's the de facto standard for data integration, at least at scale, for people who need a robust and enterprise-ready and always up-to-date, reliable way of delivering data. Change data capture is basically the way to go. So quick overview, how does mirroring work? Well, in principle, it works in two phases. You see on the left-hand side, there's basically the path from the source database. Again, database, you can think of other stuff as well, from the source database into a landing zone. And then there's the second step of the process, which takes the data from the landing zone and process the data into the sink. So for example, when you think about the change data capture process, you would fetch an initial snapshot first, land it in the landing zone, move it over to the to the sink table. Later on, you would fetch changes from the source, land it in the landing zone, and then based on the type of change, you would basically process the changes. If it's an insert, you would insert it into the sink table. If it's a delete, you would delete it, and update would be updated. That's basically how that works. And we initially built this as an integrated experience as well, right? So integrated in the sense that, we have dedicated connectors, you have everything from a UX perspective and also from a management perspective integrated into Fabric. But as I said, when you think of Fabric as a platform, this is certainly not sufficient. And that's why we actually, when this is just the current state of the connectivity we have, and maybe it's a good point to stick to the slide for a second. The connectors which you see on top, the three ones for Snowflake, Cosmos DB, and Azure SQL, those are connectors which we have built and where we have used exactly the architecture which you saw on the previous slide. On the bottom right, you see Oracle as a source. And with Oracle, we have actually worked in a slightly different way, because Oracle has capabilities to push change data. So there's no need for us to build a connector. Oracle has these capabilities anyway. So we considered, okay, how can we open up this mirroring experience? And what we came up with is what we call open mirroring. In the end, high level, you see it's still the same thing, or very similar, right? Two-step process. Data gets ingested into the landing zone and then gets processed by the mirroring engine. So the upper part, or the second part of the process, is pretty much unchanged. But we open it up in a way that we allow third-party tools to ingest data into that landing zone, right? So what we basically did is we specified how we expect the data to land, certain formats, naming conventions for the tables where you land the data, some column names with the change indicators, all of that we specified. And that's an open specification, which you can find in our documentation these days. And that's basically also how we basically drove the discussion with the colleagues from DAB and how they later on integrated with mirroring. And before I close this and hand back to Philip, let me briefly show you the documentation here, because that's really interesting and really proves that I'm talking about openness in this context. Where is it? I'm missing the mirroring on the left-hand side. Okay, I'm really bad. But there's a dedicated section on open mirroring in Fabric, which basically contains all the, well, it starts with an overview, but it really also contains the exact specification of how we expect this integration to work, so that basically everyone can, even independently of us, build their own open mirroring solutions on top of our platform. And with this, let's see how that works in practice and how real people with good SAP and long-standing SAP knowledge have used those capabilities in collaboration with us. To be very honest, we also learned a few things from DAB in that context. So how this collaboration really led to something which now is ready for customer use. And if you're interested, I think Philip will probably talk about this as well. We are happy to onboard you. We're also collaborating on the first customer use cases together, because we know that you basically need all the three parties involved, right? It's not something where we lean back and say, okay, we are big Microsoft, we expect things to work and the partner to solve the solution, the issues. We are actively engaged into the first customer projects to really see that things on our side work nicely, the integration works nicely, and we keep getting feedback from DAB on certain topics where we can still improve. But anyway, with that, I'll hand over back to Philip.
Yeah, thanks, Ulrich, for explaining the open mirroring topic a little bit more in detail. It has been a half-a-year journey. As said, we are now onboarding the first customers, but let me go one step, one step a little bit more to the question, why do we need to do this? And as we mentioned, or as we are doing, did mention in the beginning when Johannes was presenting the company, we as DAB are serving or doing the SAP data integration parts for 21 years now. So a long time history of extracting data out of SAP systems. And that's why we as a company exist. So there might be a little challenge of why extraction tools in SAP, such as ours, are needed. And I've put together a few information about the challenges which you might have with extracting SAP data. And the first problem is SAP itself. SAP is a little bit trying to protect to get the data out of SAP. And over the past years, it also didn't get much better with the connectivity. And especially, in the last years, there were a few SAP nodes which were restricting the data extraction of SAP and the data access to the SAP databases and the systems much more. We have, on the one hand, which is an RFC add-on on SAP, which is in every SAP system. That's a standard SAP add-on from SAP. SAP is not supporting anymore that externals are using their RFC function module. That was used by a lot of clients or third-party tools because you do not need to create your own RFC function module. Also, the usage of ODP data replications through APIs are not permitted anymore. So that also leads to a point that a lot of still working ODP connections are not certified anymore or not supported through SAP. And also, last but not least, which would be an idea for some others, also the usage of the SAP HANA transaction log is heavily discouraged. So you cannot just go to the HANA transaction log and grab the information and from this build a change data capture table. 2 weeks ago, we then had a workshop with a customer using SAP, still on premises, but they are going with a Rise on Azure program. So end of this year, they want to lift up the first systems to the Azure cloud. And they are looking for a tool like how they can build a pipeline into their Fabric environment. And what they have seen is that you at the moment need a big IT involvement to actually get extractions running. You do not have the possibility when you grab directly from the database or grab directly through like a connector to filter on tables, because some informations are the header tables, but you only want to have the segment tables. And so what they do for a lot of tables, they need to build a CDS view to get the field they want to filter from the header table into the segment table. So that needs IT involvement. That means if they want a new table where they need a new CDS view for, they need to open a ticket. Then it might take 3, 4, 5 weeks. The IT needs to test it. They need to create it, build it. So it's up to 1 or 2 months until you can create a new mirrored table somewhere. And this is very hard. Also, a lot of other stuff there you actually need to script the extraction logic. So you don't have a graphic user interface. You need to define which are the key fields and everything in script. And I mean, yeah, we are serving a lot of IT customers, but IT doesn't always mean that you need to script everything on your own. Sometimes, if it's easier through a nice GUI, then why not using this? And last but not least, we have quite some performance issues when working with simple standard connectors. The application databases, run out of space, so they crash. That customer has, we had 2 weeks ago, which I just mentioned. They were not even able to load their customer master data table KNA1 because the application log would burst. So that did not work out. And so they were building extensive pipes also directly on the database, which is not allowed officially. And when they are now lifting to Azure, then it's not possible to grab through the database directly anymore. So, or you use a HANA Enterprise Edition, but then you can pay millions to SAP in addition. So you see, there are a lot of challenges when getting to SAP data, and we as DAB also have the slogan "Analytics Simplified." And the simplification of the whole extraction process is something that we want to show you today. And let me start with a small graph where we can show you our idea how we are trying to solve the issue. So we have our data analytics platform where you can also only do the data extraction from the SAP systems. This is built out of SAP, so it's an external solution which we can roll out through the Azure Marketplace, for example, and then it's an Azure managed managed application on your Azure tenant in your Azure environment, so hosted completely in the cloud, deployment easy, etc. You just need to perform or you do the connections. We have an own RFC function module on your SAP system. This is an SAP certified add-on, so you can just enroll it through the same transaction. For everyone who knows SAP, that's a task of 15 minutes. And you can also uninstall if you don't like to use it anymore. That also works. So this is our connector on your SAP system. The second thing you need on your SAP system is a user. Can be a technical or a named user, a dialog user. That's fully up to you with reading permissions to the tables you would like to extract. So these two things are the only things you need on your SAP system. And that makes it easy to install. I mean, creating a user with reading rights on tables plus installing an RFC function module through the same transaction, that's not more than 30 minutes in total. And with that 30 minutes, that's it. You do not need to do any additional stuff on the SAP system. No configuration on the database, no other configurations on the system. All the extraction logic, and this I will show in just a second, I will do in DAB Nexus. So outside of the product, which means that we also take the load from the SAP system. Our only connection is through the RFC add-on, where we ask to get the data we would like to have in small slices of usually 15,000 records, where we keep in constant contact. And then we take it into DAB Nexus and push it into Fabric. And as Ulrich mentioned, we are using also the open mirror technology as one of our targets, but we could also serve, for example, the Fabric Lakehouse or the SQL server on Fabric, which is in preview at the moment. So that means we have multiple possibilities to connect to Microsoft's analytic platform, Microsoft Fabric. So only 3 simple steps to integrate. SAP side, install the add-on and create a user. as said, 30 minutes. From the IT side, it's establishing the network connectivity between your SAP system and the extractor side. That is possible. Also easily we can support you with that, but usually the IT needs to know. And if you need to also, or if you want to have SNC also enabled, that's also possible, but then you need to provide the environment for SNC as well. And then third side is the extractor side, where you define the target destination, so Fabric Lakehouse, Fabric Mirror, the SQL database, or whatever you want to have as your target destination, and create the extraction packages needed. We also have some quick start, I would say, extraction packages where we can help you with some snippets. So we can speed up your implementation process, so that we are talking about days of implementation and not weeks or months. And as I said, we had a workshop with that one company 2 weeks ago. And for the next steps of the Fabric integration we would like to go on, they have roughly 300 SAP tables. Let's say 100 are customization tables, so T tables. This you can add to your extraction in an hour or two. That's just typing the name of the table and putting the return key. And then we have 200 more. Some you need to build a data logic. For some, it's just a full load every time. Depends a little bit on the kind of the table. And we have been talking that we can do most of it in a 2 to 3 day workshop. And after this, you're good to go. So that means the whole implementation process, including creation of the logics, will be done in roughly a week, which is very, very fast. And these are also, I would say, our key differentiators, as we do not need to do any configurations, as you, after a short workshop, can also add everything as a self-service and build everything through a nice GUI with our own Delta logic. This is a very good option to keep you in a fast pace when integrating your data into Fabric. And this I would like to show you now. So let's go to our Nexus demo environment. And here I have prepared something. As said, we can deploy this in your Azure environment as well. So you don't need any installations. You can just access this through a link in your browser, and we are supporting the main browsers. And then you can see this is an analytic platform, so we also have a content studio, etc. We have a monitor, we can monitor your activities and so on. But what we are going to do now is we want to create a package. And that package we are going to create, let's refresh the page maybe, is that we are doing now, so you see it's live, it's the moment loading a little longer. Nevertheless, I would also have a second possibility. So let's create one package where we say it's an FI package. Because these are the tables you all know pretty well. So let's start with some BSEC BKPF. So let's see. At first, what you need to do is we are creating we need to connect to a subsystem. And these are the subsystems we created in the back. So let's do a HANA, and with a HANA, I can also, or S4 system, to be honest, you can also have an ECC with a HANA database below. And then if we start, you see that we have a very clear screen on where you can build your package logic. And a package for us is a combination of tables. And that combination of tables, we are now creating step by step. And you can click on New Table, and then you will get down to the field of tables, where you can either search for the table name, so the technical one. That can be one thing. Or you could also, and this now depends on the language with what you are logged into your SAP system, but you could also use for the table descriptions or accounting document header. So both is possible. And that's it. So now we have already our first two tables in our package. Let's move on. BKPF, our accounting document header tables. Everyone knows, white table. So we can go to the next step and define a little bit more about our BKPF. So what kind of fields are we now going to extract as well? So we can say we want all, or we only want a few. Let's keep it with a few tables. So we might want to go on later. Then you have the data strategy. So how do you want to handle that table when it comes to your target destination? Do you want to merge? Do you want an override? Do you want to append it? So just always append the data to which is there, and you do the logic on your own. Or, and we also have this because we have some customers who might or who ask for this, is the layout. So we don't push any data, we only push the table layout so that you have the table names and fields already in your target destination. Yeah, that's the same also for the BSEC, same setup, and done pretty quickly. Now you see that we have some fields where you have a key symbol in front. And so we detect the key fields of every table automatically. And that also means that when extracting tables, we build slices based on these key fields. So you don't need to configure on which field you are building slices. We take care of this for you. That means we barely run into timeouts. We barely crash anything. So we have, in 21 years of DAB company, never harmed any SAP systems. But maybe we want now also to filter, because the whole BKPF might be too much for us. We only want to get a certain company code into our target destination. And therefore, we are, or we need to create a filter. So we click on the filter symbol, get a plus, and let's call it company code. Here we go. Also, then we get in the middle our possibility to define what kind of filter this is. And here we have, for example, our input filter. That means we can input during the task creation, because what we are doing now is we are building the basis for the extraction. And afterwards, in the workspaces, we start the extraction. So these are two steps. And we can now take a lookup filter. That means we are pulling the data from SAP, all the company codes, and then you can select in the menu all the company codes. And here we do a table relation. So we say we take BKPF and the company code. That's it. And then we take another filter because we want to have a time period. So let's take the time period filter and go into the middle section. Say we want an input filter, and the time period is always between two dates. And also here, we take a table relation with BKPF, and then we see, oh, we are missing our field. So that means we need to go back to BKPF because we forgot to include the field on which we want to filter. So we need to include that field as well into our selection. Can go back, take the table description, BKPF, and then also take the CPU DT. Yeah, and now we have these dates on the date filters on the BKPF and the company code filter. But how are we not now filtering the segment table? So this is the big question. And here we have something which is called repositories, where we can extract segment tables in dependency to a header table. And let's build this as well together. So we need to create a repository which we name FI documents, for example. Here we go. And then we search for the key fields, company code, fiscal year, and the document number. So these are our 3 key fields, of which we can, on the one hand, find company code, BLNR, GEA in both of these two tables. If you would be 100% correct, we could also take the client as well. And now we define what is our source table. From which table do we get information? So let's take BKPF, and our target table is now the BSEC. So what have we done? We are now looking at the right side, and we see the logic we are producing. So we can filter the header table. In our case, it's the BKPF. And then we put the key fields into a so-called repository. And once we have finished the extraction of the BKPF, we extract the BSEC based on the key fields of the repository. That means we have an indirect filtering. And this works for all tables which you can put in relation in dependency to each other. And with that logic, you can build easy delta logics. And yeah, let me start or try to reopen again the Nexus demo, because I have created already a package where I can show you in a little bit more detail how this could be when it's a little bit more complex. Because I have created like an actual delta package for BKPF and BSEC. And let's have a look on how this looks. This looks now a little bit more complicated, because what else do we need for an actual delta, which we push into a Fabric mirror? And these are the changes, because we can always just take the newly added stuff from yesterday. But if you go into your general ledger and change a document or whatever, we would not get that information. And therefore, we extracting the change data as well through CD header and CD pos. And this we do, on the one hand, we also look on the time period, and we filter on the object class. So Beleg, the object class, is made for all FI documents. And that means we get also all the changes. And here we have 2 virtual tables for the BKPF. So in that virtual table, this will not be in your target destination in the end. So we virtually get the key fields and put it into our repository of everything where the data was created in the time period selected. Then all the changes to the FI documents, which was also made in that time period. And then we have another problem for BKPF and BSEC. There is a clearing date, which is just set, and you will not find in your change documents. So we also need the document number of the accounting document for all the documents where the clearing date has been set yesterday. Otherwise, we will, in our updated database, not get the information of the clearing date. And this we put in our repository. And through this, we can load BSEC and BKPF now. And also through the change documents, which we filter on the correct object class and so on, we can also find the corresponding positions of the actual change. I did this package because I know the solution a little bit. That took me, let's say, 10 minutes. And you see, in 10 minutes, we can create a very complex thing where you would need, when scripting, much, much more. And what I have done before, I have already created a first initial load for either the mirror or the Fabric Lakehouse. These are so-called replication tasks. And now I would like to show you, if you have done your initial load, how you would set up your stuff so that it would run on a regular base. So we do always a pull from the SAP system. So we can say we do a daily refresh of the data. We can do an hourly refresh of the data, but then we sometimes need to load some stuff double, but that's usually not taken any problems. And we are at the moment also working on recurring tasks. So that means sequential loads. That we say, okay, once one extraction ended, we directly start again. That will be a feature which is coming soon. But let me show you how we would do or how we would set up a regularly run if we want to refresh our data in the Fabric database on a daily base. So we just take the task. And one thing I would also show you is we also have the possibility to do privacy protection. So we take personal data fields and pseudonymize them directly on the subsystem. And once it's in your end system, we are ready for data privacy and security, etc. Then we say, what kind of connection do we want to have? Fabric Mirror database is our connection now. And we want to merge the data. We go on, and then we say we want to have it daily, running every 1 day. And we start, let's say, today at 11:30. Continue. And now we see we have a time period. And of course, I could now put in the fixed time period, but that would not at all help us, right? So what we do is we activate the scheduler of our time period. And then it sees if we do it daily, today we want to load all the data coming in from yesterday. You could also adjust this. And last but not least, our parameter, which we also added, was the company code. And I show you now how this looks like. I have already done some, but yeah, this is the filter where we pull the data and then you can select. So you don't need to know all the stuff by heart. But this is also a game changer that you can switch to a scheduled parameter. So you don't need to script anything in your details where it says, okay, which is greater than where the run was done today and whatsoever. Continue. You give it a name. And here we go. And once the run runs, so in 15 minutes, you can see how the tables are created. And so we are doing at first the ritual tables, and then we load the other stuff based on this. And you can see, I mean, it's not a lot of data, but it only takes a few seconds. And this is the whole time also with extraction to the Fabric environment itself. So that means this is also already into the Lakehouse or the mirror. And we can now jump into Lakehouse or mirror, where you can then see these are exactly the tables we defined in our package. So BKPF, BSEC, CD header, and CD pos for the object class Beleg. Yeah, this is what I wanted to show you. Oh, that is the wrong one. Here we are. In just a short demo. Let me summarize what you have seen just recently. So we can natively connect to Microsoft Fabric. And this also means we can do it at the moment. We are live with our solution. We can connect to Fabric Open Mirror. We can connect to Fabric Lakehouse and to the SQL. So if you want to do any tryouts, we can run this from now on. It's quick and easy to deploy. As I said, the deployment, installation, configuration, we are talking about a day, especially if you have the whole IT with you, or you are from IT, you know what to do, and we can support you with this as well. So that's pretty fast. We have, through our package studio, something where everyone can define SAP extractions. So you don't need to be a SAP nerd. You need some general SAP knowledge with tables, etc. But we can also support you with everything in that area. Nevertheless, you don't need to do ABAP programming, ABAP coding, SQL coding, whatsoever coding. It's done through a GUI. So if you are an SAP expert, but not so technical in the scripting, you can do it. And especially through our package studio, you can easily create also dependencies, delta logics, etc., etc. And one thing I would like to emphasize is it's an open mirror. So our product of pulling out data from SAP systems, we have a knowledge of 20 years, more than 20 years of experience. That means you have a proven product with us for a new platform called Microsoft Fabric. And if you would like to test this, feel free. We can always provide you a private offering through the Azure Marketplace, which is free of charge for a certain amount of time. And so we can deploy it for you. Then you can configure everything, and you can do your own first packages, extraction logics, etc. And we can also give you some fast forward packages to speed up your testing process. And with that said, I drink a sip of water, and then we are asking you some questions first, like how you like today's webinar, before you or we are answering your questions in the last 10 minutes of today's webinar. So let's move on. Here we go. So the poll should now be available in your window. And yeah, Johannes, I think you have read in the meantime a little bit of the questions, right? I did not have any look into our questioning section. So let's have a look.
There are two questions that speak to one topic. It is around the RFC and the need for DataSphere. I think that was maybe a little bit quick, but we are using our own RFC function module, which is not affected. And so in our view, DataSphere is not needed here. Philip, you want to elaborate a little bit more on that?
Correct. So we have created an own RFC function module, and this is SAP certified. So you can also look into the solutions directory at SAP for the add-ons. You will find us as DAB. This is used to read or to manage the connection between SAP Nexus as the analytic platform and the SAP system. This is, we have done a few adjustments, but it's also a proven thing. We have in a lot of companies already that RFC function module, and it's pretty quick to implement. And that means we have our own, so we don't fall into that node of not using or not be supporting by using the RFC read table connection anymore.
Thank you.
If I can quickly jump in here, because that is confusion which I also get a lot, and where I get a lot of customer questions. It's not about, as you said, it's not about RFC connectivity in general. And there's another question here which maybe also goes in that direction and then shows that potentially as a misunderstanding, right? SAP is not blocking RFC connectivity to their backend systems. It's about very specific SAP modules where SAP says you can't use it. In the end, I mean, you have a contract with SAP, check what's written in your contract. That's the foundation of your legal relationship. We can't comment on that. We don't know your contracts, but that is basically the baseline from a legal perspective or from a license perspective. Everything else, I mean, it's a matter between customers and SAP in the first place. So as I said, we should be very cautious commenting on this. But yeah, look at these statements carefully, make up your mind, and make sure you're on solid ground. But the situation is complex. Let's put it this way.
There is also part of a question, can enterprise insights in Fabric be good enough to cater to most financial steering model report? I think we can deliver the data, Ulrich. Maybe that goes more into your direction.
Yeah. I mean, the aspiration or the purpose of enterprise insights is to basically serve like a couple of standard use cases end to end, from the data integration to the analytic front end to the Power BI dashboard. Of course, it will not satisfy and not cater for all the use cases you have on top, but I think the underlying data model is very, very flexible so that you can also use your analysis or adjust your analysis on top and adjust the dashboard, maybe extend it or tweak the data model a little bit. So as I said, it caters for two kinds of things. First of all, some out-of-the-box accelerators, which you can use and which maybe satisfy certain needs. I can't judge if that's true for the ones which you're asking for. So I can't really answer that question. But yes, maybe some of these things might be solved out of the box. If not, the data model should be good enough to serve as a foundation for what you actually need and even help you speed up with those requirements.
And also, maybe you can find this as well on our website. We are also delivering data products, so as well for financial stuff, which are pre-built out of the shelf data products for example, general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, etc., where we put together all the stuff you need with descriptive fields, with T-tables, and also where you can just take your Power BI then, plug and play and just build your own graphs. And I think that's also very interesting. Johannes.
Good.
Do I have more questions?
There's a question. Does this connection need a special kind of Fabric subscription? So we as DAB deliver Nexus as a software. Regarding the Fabric subscription kinds, Ulrich, I would also point kindly in your direction.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm not an expert on the provisioning and on the sizing questions and on the license-related questions, but I just checked our documentation, and you will find some information about the required capacities there as well. So I would definitely refer to the documentation here. I can paste the link to the open mirroring docs here as well. And if you search for capacity, at least for the open mirroring, I don't see any restrictions. Of course, you need a Fabric capacity, but I don't see a specific size restriction. As I said, in case of doubt, skim through the docs first. We should have the information there. I'm unfortunately the wrong person to ask.
But yeah, you can also, after the webinar, I mean, you have our emails, reach out to us and we get you to the right person on the Microsoft side, as we are, as a managed partner, are in close contact with Microsoft, so we can find you the person who can answer the question exactly without any problem. Okay, then we have a question in the chat as well, I've seen, Johannes, which is about operational data provisioning, ODP. And you have to say, no, we don't fall into that SAP node. We are accessing through the RFC with the user, etc. So we have our own access to to the SAP system through the user, through the system, and therefore go through the application. And we have seen, there's also a premium outbound for data flow, etc., data sphere that you only use for pull and push. But the data sphere has the same problems I just introduced in the beginning. Comes as empty. It is quite hard to configure. It takes a lot of time and all that stuff. And it's, as we saw at another client, more than double the price as we can offer. So as Ulrich said, look into your contracts, but we don't fall into that SAP node with our technology. So if you are able to use RFC connectivity, which is usually for almost all almost all our customers, then just reach out to us and you can try out our solution as well.
There came in another one. I read, if I understood it right, when extracting data, we will do a full or provide some filtering in the tool, or need to continue to use CDC techniques available in the SAP ERP box.
So this is the answer could be very long. Let me try to do it short. So it depends a little bit on the table we want to mirror. Some tables, it doesn't make any sense to build like a delta logic, for example, T tables. If you add a new company code, why building this through change documents? Extracting the T001 takes a second. So do a full load every time. No one cares. Then we have some tables, for example, an ERP, which looks like BSIC, so the open creditor bookings in the general ledger, so in the sub ledger. Once they are cleared, they move to the BSAC. That means there's also no change. They just leave the one table and go into the other. So if you need these two tables, you might also want a full load every time. And for some other tables then, I don't think that you want a full load of your change document tables every day. That would take much longer. So for these tables, we then need to build a delta logic. And I would say we need to analyze a little bit on which tables you would like to mirror into Fabric. And then we need to decide this table we do a full load, this table we do a delta logic to only get the newly and the added ones, etc., etc. I hope that was understandable, what I just said. Okay, I think the time's running out, but
I would have a last question towards Ulrich. Ulrich, you shared some links in the slides that we will provide to the attendees. We also have a section with links. With your allowance, we would include these links also to the slides to make them easily available.
Absolutely. No issues.
That is the slide Johannes just mentioned. We have some additional links. I also had the honor to speak on the SAP on Azure podcast together with Ulrich. So this is also linked in here. And then feel free to reach out as well to us. Afterwards, you always reach us through the known channels via email, via whatsoever. So we try to answer all your questions if you have any open ones. And thank you for attending. Thank you, Ulrich, for being our guest today. And
pleasure.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye-bye.